Snaravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It's time for my continued discussion on Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, the second edition of AD&D. When we last left off, we've been talking about being a Dungeon Master and the Dungeon Master's Guide. So, for today, I'm going to talk some more about travel, and we're going to start talking about roads. Of course, roads are built for one simple reason: to allow heavy vehicles, like carts, wagons, and the like, to travel from one location to the next easily and without difficulty. Roads allow travel incredibly efficient throughout a lot of terrain, and the fact is, most of these large-scale vehicles couldn't travel through a lot of terrain without roads. They need something that's flat, easy to travel, relatively flat though, to really get this distance. Another great thing about these roads is that if I'm some kind of character wandering the roads, I'm probably not going to get lost. Granted, it is still possible to get lost if there's a network of roads or some kind of situation where I may take a wrong turn, but overall, yes, not getting lost when going from point A to point B in roads. So the simplest form of any kind of road is, of course, a trail. A trail is little more than an area that has been cleared by either use or someone that wishes to use it. Most trails evolve from, of course, things like game trails, where animals travel on it long enough to wear out, where, of course, a lot of the grass and plants would be growing. Now, when you're traveling on a trail, most of the time, it is going to be clear. There is chances of things getting in the way of it. Trees could fall, there could be large rocks, there could be bushes that have popped up in the middle of the trail. Though it is used, things happen. Trails are also usually going to be quicker, but longer. Trails avoid a lot of the major problems, hazards, things that would slow you down on the course of it. They wind around like special rivers, waterfalls, cliffs, things like that. They avoid a lot of the time-consuming parts of the travel that you may encounter. Of course, this does mean it is a lot more travel. But because it is faster, that means it sort of balances out in the end, that you will travel faster, if not longer, on the course of a trail. Trails themselves will half the movement rate of the type of terrain you're traveling in. So you look at that terrain type, how long it normally would you travel in it, half it, makes it a lot easier. For this basic reason, trails on something like a farmland don't reduce any time. It's just as easy it would be without the trail in something like farmland. Big, open, clear plains that aren't difficult to travel on. A trail in a forest or on a mountain will have a general effect on you and your travel time. Now, roads themselves are, of course, built by major countries, and maintaining a road is difficult, so you won't see roads in a lot of places. Granted, you might see large-scale trails that will be effectively little better than that. They might be large enough for a wagon to pass, but they're still not great. That would be something you'd find in farmland. Roads themselves, though, that's something, yes, a country has. It takes money and time to maintain it. Roads are great for basic travel. The thing is that they have to be kind of flat, open terrain for the best results of these roads. When you're traveling on them, you travel at half a point of movement per mile. It's very easy movement. Now, you could put roads in other territories, and in that point in time, when it starts becoming less flat, less effective for what the road needs to be, you reduce the travel time by half, and this is especially in the mountains. Then it's no better than a trail. When you are getting to a more hilly, mountainous area, you are treating it exactly like a trail would, basically halving the movement. And even on the highest mountains, if you have roads up in there, the greatest it will be is 4 points per mile of movement, which isn't terrible, but isn't great. Now, all this assumes the movement is in, well, the best conditions. This is the best conditions for traveling to these areas that I could along my journey. No major hazards, no major changes in the weather or what's going on around me. But these things can occur. You can be following a trail and all of a sudden hit a cliff. You could be traveling around and all of a sudden a storm hits. All of these things can, of course, increase your travel time by effectively changing your movement rate. There's a chart in the book that tells you what kind of hazard, what it will do to your movement rate. There's two possibilities. It will add to the movement rate. If my movement rate was 4, now it's 5, now it's 6, now it's 7. If my movement rate was 4, the other possibility is multiplier. Now my movement rate could be 12 because it's multiplied by 3. You will be looking at each, and these things can combine. If you're adding up numbers, you will add them all together for all the various things that are slowing you down. Multipliers, after you've added them all together, you multiply it and figure out the total travel time. And multipliers could multiply themselves and make it nearly impossible to travel because the weather, everything that's going on is beating you down so much you just can't move. It just stops you in your tracks because conditions have gotten so terrible. That can occur. It can just stop you from moving. Granted, that's an unusual conflux of everything going on, or your DM just messing with you. Now, the fastest mode of travel you can take is by water. In particular, by river. River is the easiest and fastest because you're never going to get lost. Rivers are well known and well charted. It's one path you can take normally. And you can both take large amounts of material on a trip that you don't need to carry, very large pieces of equipment and things like that. And you can do stuff while in the boat. Depending on the situation, on what you're sailing on, if it's just like an open river, you could practice, learn spellcasting, a lot of different things that could occur just being on a boat because of the nature of it. Now, there are 2 major factors you're going to keep in track of while traveling on a boat. The type of boat you have and the current itself. The type of boat tells you the basic speed you can travel on. There is a chart in the book you can check that tells the type of river boats you might have. Depends again on the size of the river, the type of boat you can throw on it. There are then the current itself. Now, beyond this current, you do have to worry a little bit about traveling on the river. There are dangers on the river, waterfalls, rapids, etc. If you have a little knowledge, though, you can avoid them, and you don't have to worry about that. We'll stop on that in a second again. Back to the current. The current itself will do one of 2 things. If you're traveling downstream, current adds to your speed. If you're traveling upspeed, it subtracts from your speed. Basically slows you down. Now, there are some advantages to, of course, the current and the direction you're traveling. If I'm traveling downstream, I'm more than likely not going to have as much time to react to the dangers I've hit. The dangers could face me, they could capsize me, cause trouble to my ship. On the other hand, traveling upstream, because I'm a little slower, I have a little more time to realize what's going on and avoid it. Avoid what's going on. Now, granted, I could still capsize, get knocked over, and I would basically start going downstream, lose time. But I have a better chance of reacting it going upstream, because I am going slower, too. But if you have things like a great map or a good guide, you can usually avoid a lot of these circumstances. A good guide could also tell you which rivers, which tributaries to go down to get to where you need to go safely and successfully, while avoiding all the rapids, waterfalls, etc., which you might have to figure out and deal with. Anyway, that's it for today. So I first introduced you to roads and trails. There are things that you're going to be walking on more than likely, more than just bushwhacking it across the country. Most people don't tend to do that, even adventurers. You don't like just walking out in the middle of something because it's very easy to get lost, and more than likely, unless you know there's something out there, what reason do you have to? Trails and roads will take you in between cities and villages and things like that they're more than likely what you're going to travel on. Of course, it might be easier to take a boat, to head down a river, which I talked about traveling down a river and what that means for your journey. In the next episode, though, we're going to move on from talking about traveling on a river and talk about another body of water, the ocean. Sailing across the sea, traveling across the ocean from one port to the next. We're going to talk about that journey of your adventure in the next episode. But I hope you're having a great day, and until the next time, I bid you farewell.